Hey guys, Jessica here and welcome back to my channel. Today I am playing with some of the products from the Hedgehog Hollow August card kit box, and this was really fun to do because it had a lot of really beautiful florals in this box, and I don't normally do florals, so it was a challenge and I really had a lot of fun. So it was kind of out of my comfort zone, but I do enjoy coloring, and this box was just right up my alley because included in the box was the Nuvo alcohol markers. These are the Nuvo creative pens. I talk a little bit more about them in the unboxing video. I really actually like these pens. I've tried a few other alcohol marker brands that aren't Copics, because Copics are kind of my favorite. They're just a really good quality marker. But these ones, I did like the way that they felt while coloring. They come in a 3-pack and they're around $6, so it's pretty affordable also. To get into this card, I am actually using some Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to be blending over a pink colored cardstock. This is a piece of cardstock that came in the Hedgehog Hollow August card kit box. But this really isn't a heavy cardstock at all. So it's great for layering, beautiful color, but I thought I would try just something a little different because I had this idea of a color scheme in my head, and I knew I could achieve that pretty easily with Distress Oxide inks, but I also wanted to use a lot of the products that came in this box. So I decided to do some Distress Oxide inks blending over the top of it. I started with mustard seed at the very top, which gave me a really bright orange color. And then I went in with the middle with spice marmalade, which was pretty true to color, I think, as far as the spice marmalade color goes. I think it had a bit of more of a pinky red tone in the middle because of that pink cardstock, so that was kind of fun to play with. And then for my bottom color, the darkest color I'm using is Fired Brick, which is like a very pretty mulberry kind of red almost, and I like these 3 color combinations together. It is now September, so it is almost fall time. Some people are already celebrating, so I was really thinking this color scheme kind of gave me fall vibes. So once I had a good blend, and I'm using some makeup brushes for this, I sprayed some water into my hand with the Distress sprayer and then flicked it onto the cardstock. And then I'm going to heat set that, re-wet the ink that's already on my mat, and kind of pounce it or smush that cardstock into that puddled ink that I'm just going to reuse. Why waste it, right? And I really wanted those edges to be kind of a darker tone than the rest of this cardstock, so I go back through with some more of those inks. I also brought in some fossilized amber to darken the mustard seed a little bit more. And then I really wanted some bright yellow splatter on this, something that was kind of subtle but would be very bright and neon. So of course I brought in the Brutus Monroe Neon Aqua Pigments. I can't stop playing with these. I think they're a lot of fun, and I'm all for those bright colors. Definitely not something that you can see a whole lot of, especially since I'm going to be covering this with a rather large stamp. But it did give me the look that I was kind of going for. So speaking of the stamp that I'm using, the one I decided to go with is the large bloom stamp set. And this is by artist Alex Siberia. It's a really large, beautiful stamp. I don't exactly know what kind of flower this is. I'm not that versed with florals, but this one I am going to be stamping onto a piece of 80-pound Neenah cardstock with Gina K's amalgam ink. Both of these products did come in that card kit also, and they're actually ones that I use all the time. I really like the Gina K amalgam ink, especially for Copic coloring. I'm going to stamp that with my stamp platform. Since this stamp is so large, I find it's a little easier to stamp in sections. I don't always do this, but with something this detailed, I do try to. I think it gives you a better impression. And I'm going to carefully stamp all of the spots that might be a little bit faded, spots that I probably didn't ink as well as I should have. There was just a little bit on that floral that I had to clean off, and I got a much better impression right in that general area. It was just a little bit of residue from when the stamp was manufactured. I did clean it off with a damp chamois beforehand, but I didn't hit that section, I guess. So for the coloring, I'm going to be using the Nuvo Creative pens, and I still try to put the caps where you can see them throughout this whole thing, even though there's no information on the caps whatsoever. But it is nice that they have a very clear view of what colors are on that other end. So these don't have a brush tip either, they just have a bullet, which I thought would be a little bit harder than it actually was to color with, because I am so used to the Copic markers and that super brush tip that we all love. But these blended really well together. I do really like the color choices that were picked for this box. I was very surprised by the formula of this alcohol ink marker. So I started off with some veining and shadowing with the darkest green marker, and that's the 416 Vine Leaf. And then I went through and blended out all of those areas with the middle green marker, the 412 Peapod. And then I filled in all of those leftover white areas with the lightest of the markers. It's a very heavy contrast coloring that I'm doing, which I like. That's kind of my style, I think. And the lightest color is the 410 Persian Lime, and all of these green markers come from the set that is called Clover. And I'm going to do that to all of the leaves except for one part which I do miss because I wasn't really sure if it was part of the flower or the leaves. And then I also color the stem with the darkest green. So for the actual floral, I wanted a lot of contrast like I like, but I also wanted to try a more watercolored look using alcohol markers. But it was just something that I thought might look really cool, and I was just playing around with these newer markers to me. So all the sides of the petals that are facing away from the middle of this flower will have a darker tone, and then the other side, the flip side that is facing towards the center of the flower, will have a more lighter tone. So I can very easily go in with a lot of different colors of markers, especially Copics, to color with. I can use all kinds of different colors. It's very hard for me to not use a lot of different tones and a lot of different markers. So this was a little bit of a challenge because I only have the 3 markers in the same tone for this red coral color. So after I lined each shadow side of the backside of the petals with that darkest coral color, I went through and I blended it heavily with the blender pen. So the third package of markers that I got have a pitch black and then also have a 485 feather gray, and then there's also a blender pen, kind of like the colorless blender of Copics, included. And this blender pen is really good. It reacts extremely well with those colors. I really like that kind of splotchy watercolor look I was getting with this. So I'm going to go through and do that to each section of those petals, blending out those shadowy areas, those darker areas. So for the other side of the petals, the opposite side, the flip side, I used the lightest tone, which is the 373 Pink Grapefruit. I'm going to do the same thing to fade out with that blend marker so that it kind of fades out to a white, but you still get that kind of a splotchy watercolor look. And then I just kind of go back and forth with the blending pen and the medium shade to help blend out those darker colors a little bit more. And this is from the 3-pack set of coral markers. That's what the whole pack is called. And that one is the Tiger Lily color and the 374. So then I finally finished up that little piece of leaf that I wasn't quite sure if it was a petal or part of the leaf. And then I'm going to fussy cut this whole flower image out and then ink the edges. In the large bloom stamp set in the Hedgehog Hollow box, there is also these like splotches or water droplets, and I just wanted to add some more texture to that crazy background that I did. So I used some clear embossing powder with the embossing ink, both by Brutus Monroe. And I'm going to just do a couple of those, just hand stamping them, and then I'll heat set those. It's another very slight detail, but I like the texture of it. And since I had the clear embossing powder out, I went ahead and I stamped the sentiment, which is from the Bud stamp set. That's the second stamp set that was included. And I stamped that on some soft navy cardstock. And I'm also going to use that same color of cardstock to back this crazy background that I have. But it's going to be such a slight edge, so you'll only see just a hint of that. And I stamped that sentiment with the clear ink and used clear embossing powder over it just because I like this kind of a subtle look that this gives. You can't really see what it says until you're up close, which is kind of more fun that way. I'm going to mount all of those pieces together and then place it on one of the card panels that came with this kit. All you have to do is score down right through the middle at 4 1/4 and you get a A2 size Nina 110 pound solar white card base. So I kind of positioned where I thought the floral should go. I'm going to add some liquid glue to that, and I'm just using multimedia matte glue for it. I'm going to place it right in that corner area like it's pushing up from that bottom left hand side, and then I can add the sentiment onto that. And I thought it just needed something a little bit more. So I had these blue sequins. I didn't go with these. I couldn't get a placement that I liked. And I also moved that sentiment onto a different area of the flower. I'm still trying to play with those sequins. They just weren't kind of looking how I wanted them to. So I decided to skip that idea. And I'm just going to cover the sentiment with a piece of scratch paper and place this in my a spray box that I have. And now I can splatter it with some Copic opaque white. This is just like a white acrylic paint that I watered down slightly and flick onto the background area, trying to get most of that splatter onto the background and not on the flower. But if a few drops go on the flower, that's okay. That finally gave me the background that I was kind of envisioning for this floral image. And that is it from me, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun to make, and I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different, like with me coloring florals. Let me know how I did. And if you like the more kind of splotchy alcohol marker coloring like this. And I'll have another video up soon using more of these products in the monthly kit for August, so stay tuned for that. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Meh, meh.